The most life-changing thing for me about visiting these blue zones is actually how balanced their diets were.
At the time, I became macrobiotic, which is really what introduced me to Eastern culture and philosophy of, energy of food and balance. I think most people do want to do what's best for their body, but they just sometimes don't even know what that is because it is confusing.
In a nutshell, we are what we eat. So whatever is being fed to animals eventually makes it into their proteins, muscle tissue, which is what we eat and refer to as meat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Well Drop with me, your host, Amber Berger. I'm here to guide you through simple yet powerful tips to transform your wellness at home and supercharge your daily life. Today's episode is all about making healthy eating effortless, especially for those of us who are constantly juggling work, family, and everything in between. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Methodology, a San Francisco-based wellness and lifestyle brand that's redefining the way we think about meal prep. Methodology is a lifesaver for me, and it isn't just another meal delivery service. It's a game changer for anyone looking to prioritize their health without sacrificing time or taste. Fully cooked and ready to go meals are as delicious as they are nourishing. Methodology keeps your fridge stocked and your body fueled so you can focus on what really matters, whether that's building your career, caring for your family, or just enjoying life. Inspired by the world's blue zones, regions where people live longer and healthier lives, Methodology's menu is packed with sustainably sourced ingredients and options for every dietary need. From gut-friendly breakfasts to hearty dinners, every meal is designed to be heated in 5 minutes or less. Let me repeat that. 5 minutes, people. No excuses. It makes the perfect meal for time-starved professionals and busy families alike. In today's episode, we'll be talking with Methodology's CEO and co-founder, Julie Nguyen, to explore how she's bridging the gap between food as medicine and food as pleasure. We'll discuss the science-backed nutrition behind their meals, the sustainable packaging they use, and how Methodology is helping people everywhere feel good in their bodies while enjoying world-class cuisine at home. So whether you're a foodie like me and my family, a wellness enthusiast, or just someone looking to make healthier meals easier, this episode's for you. So let's dive in. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today at The Well Drop. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me, Amber.
Yes, I'm already a huge fan of Methodology, and finding healthy meals that are actually like nourishing, delicious, packed with great ingredients. And then for me, the best is that it's also in a glass jar is really important because I think people don't realize we have so many plastics and just toxic ingredients in our body. So even a lot of these meal deliveries are not packaged that way. So it's really such an elevated experience from start to finish, from the time it's delivered to your door and eating the meals. I order them for me, my family. I think it just helps, as a busy mom, especially to know that you have dinner at home in case you don't have time to make it. I love to learn, what was the inspiration behind even creating this? I think it was through your own personal experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I was pretty much needing to solve my own problem because I had a ton of health issues when I was in my late teens and early 20s, not unlike you, right? I had autoimmune health issues where I was really suffering, very overweight, very anxious, not sleeping well, acne and eczema just all over. And it wasn't until I learned about nutrition, learned how to eat properly, that I was able to totally transform my health and just start feeling good again, start feeling like myself again. And so I started meal prepping every Sunday because I didn't have time to cook on weekdays, and I'm a really bad cook. Like, I've gotten slightly better after starting Methodology, but frankly, it spoils me. So I'm not that motivated to learn how to cook.
I kind of feel you. I feel the pain.
So I used to meal prep every Sunday, and it's the last thing I wanted to do after working long hours all week. I wanted to spend Sundays relaxing and doing things outside, not being in my kitchen or at the sink or doing dishes or grocery shopping. So I started using meal prep services. I tried every service under the sun. I even shipped meals from New York to California because I was so desperate to find a solution. And everything out there was basically started by some kind of fitness enthusiast. So they were all these bodybuilder meals, which had great macros, right? But
Tough
everything
to
looked and
eat.
tasted like a TV. Yeah, it looked and tasted like a TV dinner. They were dysfunctional, depressing. They didn't taste good. There was like no pleasure in the eating anymore. And
Yeah.
eating is like one of my favorite things to do, and I didn't want to give up that pleasure. So I started working with a private chef and having them make meals that were gourmet, but that also had great macros. And I told my friends about it and asked who wanted me to deliver food to them. And so in the early days, my co founder and I were just delivering to our friends in San Francisco, and people kept asking to get added. People kept ordering. People were feeling so much better, so much less stressed. And so I decided to quit my job and do it full time. And that was about 9 years ago
Wow.
that
That's
happened.
amazing.
Hey, we're taking a quick pause to talk about something crucial: your sleep. Did you know that you spend 1/3 of your life in bed? That's a lot of time, so it makes sense that the quality of your mattress can dramatically enhance the quality of your rest. That's why I want to introduce you to my personal favorite avocado mattress. It's your first step towards sleeping like a baby every night. Why avocado? Well, here's 3 reasons this mattress is more than just a bed. It's a transformation of your bedroom into a sanctuary of sleep. Number 1, it's natural and non-toxic. If your bed came in a box and was not organic, this is for you. Avocado mattresses are made from organic materials like natural latex, wool, and certified organic cotton. This means no off-gassing of harmful chemicals, so you breathe clean air all night long. Number 2, it's unmatched for comfort and support. With its advanced ergonomic design, an avocado mattress provides the perfect balance of comfort and support. It contours to your body, relieves pressure points, and helps align your spine. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and wake up feeling refreshed and pain-free. Number 3, an organic mattress can dramatically improve your health by reducing exposure to toxins and allergens while supporting your body's natural sleep. So, if sleep has been an issue, right now is a perfect time to transform your bedroom into a sanctuary where every night is a rejuvenation session. Visit Avocado Mattress. There's a link in the show notes to see why switching your mattress could be the best decision you make for your sleep and your health. Don't wait to make sleep a priority. Your body and mind will thank you.
Well, definitely there is such a need. I mean, I feel like I think so many of us just cycle through all of them, just like hoping to find the answer. And yours is the first one that feels like a truly pleasurable experience on top of like covering all the macros and the healthy aspects of it. It's like, feels like a restaurant in your home. Could you tell me like
Yeah.
about like when you're creating these meal plans, like what differentiates methodology from all these other sort of meal plans?
I really do think it's the flavor. So I would say that our macros are as good as or better than the best meal prep services out there for athletes, for sure.
Wow.
But really, the reason why people stick with us is they're getting those results, but they're doing it without it feeling brutal. And in fact, they're enjoying the meals. And I think this is because of my co-founder and me. I come from a background where I was really uptight about my macros and nutrition, right? And so I'm always pushing for and making sure that it's the cleanest ingredients. The meals are really high protein, as low calorie as possible, as high fiber as possible. Now, my co-founder is the opposite of me. He lived on burritos when he started this company with me, right? Like he was like a foodie. He had worked at fine dining restaurants around the world since he was a teenager. And he's the food specialist, and he knows more about food than any executive chef anywhere in the world, right? So he brings the fine dining experience and the gourmet and elevated side of things. And so this push pull between us is what makes the service really magical. And not most other services don't have the gourmet person as a co-founder, right? It's usually just health enthusiasts who start
Yeah.
services like this. And it's really hard to find someone who's like really specializes in making food taste good, want to work on a service like this, if that makes sense. They'd rather just go work in a restaurant, right?
No, it's
where they
not
don't,
easy.
where they can, yeah, where they can use all the sugar, butter, gluten that they want, right? And don't have to worry about calories, right? It's just way easier. So I'm lucky that I have Stefan, my co-founder. And so, yeah, that's really what differentiates us. Is you kind of have like me, the health enthusiast, but coupled with someone who's worked in fine dining for decades to elevate the meals and be really uptight in a good way about the attention to detail of every meal. Like he will look at a meal and say, why is that stone vine buried underneath this leaf? It needs to be plated on top like this. Like he will go into the room and move a leaf, or he'll even say like, why is this onion on the side of the jar like this? It looks sloppy. It should be on top and the onion should be browned, right? Like these are the kind of details that happen only at Methodology as far as meal prep. Like that usually happens in elevated restaurants, but no other meal prep service is thinking about presentation at that level of detail like we are.
That's funny you mentioned that because like I said before, I didn't even know that as a background, but it did feel like a restaurant experience in your house. And the ingredients and the combinations, everything is very unique and different. It's not like the standard, just kind of like meat, veggie, protein. Like it is components of that, but like it's mixed in such this elaborate way that is so enticing, I guess. And also it makes you excited of like, ooh, what am I going to have for the next meal versus dreading that next meal. And I think that's a huge differentiator. And I love how you tied in the blue zones. For those who may not know like what the blue zones even are, can we kind of shed a little light on what the blue zones are and then how you're sort of incorporating that into the meals? Because I think that is super unique.
Sure. Yeah. The blue zones are the 5 regions of the world with the highest concentration of centenarians. And so I've gotten to spend a lot of time in 3 of them. That's Okinawa, Japan, Ikaria, Greece, and Sardinia, Italy. So I spent weeks in each of the regions learning recipes from locals, learning about their way of life, and then working with Stefan, my co-founder, to reimagine these recipes on our menu. And I would say like the most life-changing thing for me about visiting these blue zones is actually how balanced their diets were, meaning they weren't low carb, they weren't dairy free, they weren't sugar free, they weren't, gluten free even, right? They pretty much just eat everything, but in a balanced way and in an overall balanced lifestyle where they're walking a lot, they have great relationships with their family and friends. They're living lower stress lives in cleaner environments, right? And I think because of that, their digestion is stronger, their immune systems are stronger. And so they have no issues, eating high quality wheat and dairy the way we do in America. And so, so the blue zones really inspired me to not only bring this more balanced way of eating to our menus, meaning we don't have to totally avoid all carbs, right? Like we can eat them right in the right quantities, right? And then also it just also inspired me personally to like heal my gut and start eating, things in moderation like dairy and gluten as part of an overall healthy lifestyle. Just really not trying to be all or nothing about things if I didn't need to be.
Oh, I love that so much. It really speaks to my heart because, I mean, a big part for me of healing my autoimmune was at the time I became macrobiotic, which is really what introduced me to Eastern culture and philosophy of, energy, of food and balance. And while that is sort of a strict diet in time, I mean, I only did that for probably about a few years. Like really, I just kept myself healthy through eating a real food, number one. I think that was the biggest. Never going on like diets. My friends would always do these extreme crazy diets like the cabbage soup diet. And, for who's listening, you know who that is. One of my best friends and all these things. I just would eat real food, eat balance. And I think we've gotten so far away with that. I think it's great to do a strict thing if you want to be vegan or keto or paleo, whatever it is to help you sort of like reset. But then afterwards, you can't stay in that strict way. That's just not like a complete natural lifestyle. And I think the blue zones is such a great example of that, of like, you don't need to adhere to these insanely strict rules forever. They're not meant to be forever. I think my husband just sent me, I think one of the oldest people that passed away at like 122 years old in the 90s said it was a woman. Her favorite things was wine, chocolate, and maybe cheese or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Like okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we can live an overall healthy lifestyle if we just enjoy the pleasures of life in moderation on a regular basis. We never feel deprived. We feel happy. We feel healthy. There's like no need for extremes. The blue zones really teach us this.
It does. And then for those, like I have, people in my family who do have some allergies, if they need to be gluten-free or dairy-free, is it possible to order and kind of like personalize the menu according to certain dietary restrictions? Is that an option?
Yeah, currently the entire methodology menu is gluten-free and dairy-free because we're able to pretty much recreate almost anything. Obviously, we don't make pastries like certain pastries, like a croissant, we can't do. But most things we can recreate without using those ingredients, and we become better at it every year. And then there are different programs. So there's a vegan program, there's a meat and seafood, there's a pescatarian, there's a meat and vegan. So there's some level of customization. I think the one thing that we don't do today, we don't have like an all paleo. But I will say that our meals are paleo-ish. They're like very close. And with the exception that, yeah, we will use rice in some meals where, I'm sorry, just some Asian meals need rice.
Don't worry about the carbs. The real carbs are from like nature. It's okay. I know exactly. I was told, I went to India in December to meet with an Ayurvedic doctor. And so he, kind of observed and checked each one of my family members. And for me, he's like, and I actually eat carbs. I'm not even an anti-carb person. He's like, you need to eat more carbs for your hormones. And I was like, really? Okay. So I like forced myself. It's almost like a shift. I think just because we get so conditioned in our habits, it's just a natural, maybe it's like a human way. To force myself to like start eating more rice and eating more sweet potato. And I don't know, maybe if it was like from maybe like post-COVID or just like getting lazy with like cooking, I just kind of like sometimes drop the carbs at dinner for the sake of ease. Yeah. But now I like brought them back in. It's like so easy. I mean, it really takes 10 minutes. It's absurd. Yeah. But I love that you have that in there. I'm a stickler for ingredients. I'm really crazy about quality ingredients. For those who may not understand different terminologies, can we kind of dive into a little bit with the ingredients? Because I think it's such a highlight for you guys of what, sustainable means, what seasonal ingredients and local sourcing and how all that plays into the meal planning. Because I think that's so important also for just our overall well-being to have that thought in mind is great.
Yeah, that's a great question because we will often say that we use sustainable proteins, for example, on the methodology menu. And this means that the beef is grass-fed and grass-finished, right?
Huge.
This means that like the poultry is pastured, the pork is pastured, right? The seafood is wild when we call out wild, right? And if it ever does come from a farm, then it's a Monterey Bay green rated sustainable farm because these days, unfortunately, there are a lot of things, seafood that you just can't buy wild, anymore. And then we have to like make moves towards sustainable farming practices, but where we can get wild, we do. So like our black cod is wild because we're still able to source like wild black cod, for example. So that's that,
amazing.
The eggs are pastured, of course.
No, not of course. This is good to know. Not everyone does this. I think that this is huge. And can you explain also like why that's important? Because I think that there's so many labels and it's so overwhelming for people that we love to sort of like simplify it to understand like there is like greenwashing. So if someone is saying it's grass finished, like that is not the optimal, like you said before, grass fed, grass finished is the optimal. Because for those, I think most people do want to do what's best for their body, but they just sometimes don't even know what that is because it is confusing.
Yeah, it is very confusing. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and it's because a big food does that on purpose to confuse people. So, in a nutshell, we care about what our animals are fed because, as they say, we are what we eat. So whatever is being fed to animals eventually makes it into their proteins, muscle tissue, which is what we eat and refer to as meat. So the healthier their feed is, then the healthier their meat is going to be, right? So this is why it's important. Everything on our menu is antibiotic free. This means, you're not getting antibiotics when you eat methodology meat, whereas when you order from a typical restaurant or takeout place, you're almost certainly going to be getting meat that's commodity meat, has antibiotics, isn't grass-fed. right? So it's tricky because these are the kind of things where you don't immediately feel sick if you eat low quality proteins. It's kind of one of those things that adds up slowly over time if it's combined with a lot of other, unoptimal lifestyle choices where you just maybe aren't feeling quite as healthy as you could.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a luxury and it is more expensive to be able to afford to eat sustainable proteins. But if it is in your budget, like you are going to feel better. And frankly, with proteins and with vegetables, the higher quality the ingredient is, the better it's going to taste. Like once you get used to eating grass-fed beef, it's actually hard to go back
Yeah.
to the taste and the texture of the corn-fed stuff because it's just going to taste so mushy and fatty. Because you get used to tasting like that stronger flavor and the little bit firmer texture of a grass-fed beef. So at first you might eat it and you might not like it, but once you get used to it, it's actually hard to go back to the corn-fed stuff again. And
they
then
also,
when you travel to other regions of the world where food isn't as industrialized, they are still raising animals in these old-fashioned ways. I mean, you'll see the proteins just taste better. Like chickens that run around where their meat literally tastes better. So it's not just for health reasons. It's also just more delicious, frankly. And so this is one of the reasons why our food tastes so good, because we are literally buying our ingredients from the same vendors, the same farms as whatever local Michelin restaurant you're buying from. I guarantee it. I
It's
guarantee it.
amazing. Yeah.
And
I also
yeah.
think that when you're eating these better quality foods, your body, you don't necessarily need to eat as much of it. So if you're having a piece of chicken, I always say it really should be like the size of the palm, like the inner palm of your hand. But if you want to do the whole hand, it's an adjustment that you feel fully nourished versus when you're doing the same type of meat that is corn fed, you're still hungry. And it's because of the antibiotics, and there are chemicals they put it in there on purpose to make you hungry because you want to keep eating. And it was definitely an adjustment for my husband. He's a huge foodie. When I completely converted the house into like only grass fed and like very rigid in terms of like the quality. And it took him a minute, but now he fully, even himself, I mean, my husband's a big guy, he's 6'6", he can eat a lot. He can just have like a normal piece of chicken or beef and be fully satiated and feel good. And it's not like he's losing weight or anything. He's not undernourishing himself by any means. And what you're talking about going, if you travel, outside of the US, like this summer, we road tripped through Italy. And you see the cows and they don't even call it grass fed in another country because they don't even know what that is. Like when we were in India and we mentioned grass fed, the guy looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like that is how animals were always raised. It's only since, the industrialization that we got these like huge feedlots. Like that is actually not normal. The normal thing is like have a farm and the cows are out and they're grazing. And, back in the day, I think people in the Midwest probably did like cow tipping. Actually, in Florida, too. I grew up in Miami. People go cow tipping out by the farms, but which is not nice. But that is normal. And it's crazy that we have to like fight so hard to like go back to what always was. And then, people make fun of me at a restaurant. Like I will always ask and like have them even go check with the chefs of like, is any of your fish wild? Is any of your meat grass fed? And if it's not, then I just won't order it for me personally, just because I don't want to like add those chemicals and I'll just opt for something else. But you have to really advocate for yourself and like get knowledgeable. And like after listening to this episode today, like you're going to already be filled with so much more knowledge than somebody else. And when you go to that grocery store, like you have to look now, all of a sudden there is a grass fed movement, like the butters, the yogurts, the meats, chickens, grass-fed, pasture-raised, like these are essential. And the fact that you guys even made a point to put that in is so commendable and so important because we need it. And if we're going to not have the time to cook our own food, it's so nice that there's an option like methodology to bring that into the house. That for me, I mean, I'm like super strict. So it definitely ticks a lot of boxes for me, which I think says a lot. And on top of just like meeting those restrictions, it also is super, super delicious. So is this deliverable like in the US, internationally? Kind of where can somebody find methodology?
Yeah, right now we can get boxes to anywhere where FedEx can ship in the 48 contiguous US states. So almost everywhere.
Amazing. And do you have any success stories that you want to share? Something that really is always close to your heart from somebody whose life has been changed by ordering your meals?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I get teary-eyed or cry at least once a week because
Oh,
I do get to work really hands-on with a lot of our clients because we have this 8-week transformation tribe where they're basically signing up to have me as a coach and an accountability
ooh,
coach, and then also kind of mentor a cohort or a group all at once, just because I saw that a lot of people were using methodology for weight loss, but were feeling very lonely and weren't succeeding in the experience because maybe their partners didn't need to lose weight or their friends weren't supportive of them changing their eating habits, right? Because their friends
yeah,
are changing. It's like kind of scary. So people were feeling lonely and they weren't succeeding as like a result of that. So I can think of one woman. I won't use her name,
yeah.
but she just finished her second round of the transformation tribe. So it's 8 weeks long. And when I say second round, I think of it as a good thing. One thing I always say to people is you need to give yourself at least 6 months, really,
Yeah.
to lose weight in a sustainable way because you want to give yourself time to actually change your habits in like a healthy way so that you can keep the weight off, right? So she did finish round two and she beyond surpassed what her goal weight was for the second round. But then on top of that, like every week she was writing in with things where she couldn't even recognize her own behavior, right? So
Oh,
everything from the physical fitness side, she said, there's a hill by my boyfriend's place. You know, I used to never be able to ride my bike up it. He would ride his bike up and I would have to walk my bike. And the other day, I didn't even notice it, but I had like, I didn't have to get off my bike. I rode the bike all the way up and didn't have any issues. And I was like, wait a minute. I used to not be able to like ride up this hill. Like everything from that to I went out to dinner with friends the other day and it was so easy for me to have just 3 bites of dessert. I didn't feel like I wanted any more. I've learned how to just like eat for just pleasure, just to get enough pleasure and not have to finish everything that's in front of me and still socialize the way I wanted to. And I never thought I could eat only a couple bites of dessert before. Like that's just not who I thought I was. And so she's just, yeah, she's just totally transformed in all these little ways. And I just love that she's noticing and celebrating these things. And I'm just so happy for her that she achieved her goals. She's has a completely different mindset about what she can and can't do. And I just love it because people come into this program thinking initially like they can't do these 50 to 100 things that they're going to be testing out over the
oh,
next 8 weeks.
wow.
Everything from like, they think there's no way they'll get up to 10K steps a day. And then by the end, they're doing it, right? Like, I just love watching the way people
Yeah,
transform.
that's such a beautiful message. And I think that's an important point that you bring up of being patient and giving yourself time and your body time. And it's all about like long lasting results, right? Like the quick fix is not going. You're going to constantly be on that roller coaster and just yo-yoing. And then it's so much better to just like fine tune those habits and then hopefully stick with them, right? That's probably like the hardest part. But I think for those who are really motivated and it becomes a non-negotiable, then they'll see that, never ending success. I mean, I guess you also brought up another point. We talk about like some of the challenges that you've heard from people of, feeling lonely that made you create that program. I think that's really nice that you're creating that sense of community.
Yeah, because it's they always say, and it's true, we are often have similar health habits and weights to the people we spend the most time with, right? The 5 people. This has been
Yeah.
studied. And so a lot of these women who are coming to us are, 200, 250 pounds and have 30, 50, 100 pounds to lose. And their
Wow.
friend circle is similar. So they can't really lean on their friends for advice because their friends don't really know what to do, right? Sometimes the friends like aren't supportive. It's, and it's tricky. I have to kind of coach them through how do you navigate social situations if you're with a group that wants to order, everything on the menu and then share the desserts. Like, how do you navigate these situations? So I give them tools for like language they can use, for how they can
Great.
plan in advance and analyze a menu before even showing up at the restaurant because I've been through all of these things myself. Like I'm someone who had to lose a lot of weight. And that's one of the things I always say to people, like in any area of life, pick a coach who's already had to do and has solved what you're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they've lived it, they know it. You've done it, right?
Yeah, I've had to lose significant amounts of weight and keep it off. And so I can give them these weird little tips, you know, that they sound weird at first, but they work. Like, and a lot of them are psychological that other people wouldn't even think to mention because frankly, a lot of people who have been fit and active and in a healthy weight their whole lives, they're unaware of the habits they have that are healthy. Does it make sense? They can't teach it to someone because it's subconscious or natural or automatic because they don't even think to explain 100%. It to someone. But I had to learn it. And so I know like, okay, I used to do this and now I do this. So try it.
I mean, if anyone looked on your Instagram, your body is ridiculous. So whatever you're doing, it's working. I mean, would you say that you were just so inflamed before that maybe that's what made your body overweight and that once you sort of like reduced all of that, that you became your normal, like you're probably at your normal body weight now?
No,
or did you
it wasn't
struggle with weight
inflammation.
as a child?
No, I didn't struggle with weight as a child. I was like a very thin child with a very low appetite. And I think that I only started eating processed food once I got a driver's license.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. And then, so that's when the first time when I was like, it was when I really started eating. I was like, oh, Claim Jumper, Cheesecake Factory, PF Chang's, yeah, drive-thrus, right? And I didn't know anything about nutrition then. And so really, I think a lot of the weight struggles were just really just not knowing how to create like a balanced diet with the right calories and the right macros made of mostly whole foods. Does that make sense?
100%. So, it's not taught in school. It drives me crazy. Yeah. I keep trying to get it into my kids' schools, and even my kids are at, very interesting progressive schools, but food, it's unbelievable. It's just not part of the education system. And it really should be number one, because I look at all these kids who are carrying extra weight and it's strictly from processed food and they just don't know. And a lot of parents actually are vying for more processed food. They complain because they tried to change the food at school and work with the kitchens and stuff. And they thought I was a big pain. They were not liking it. It was met with resistance from some other families. And it was really a sad experience for me because these kids don't know. And like maybe one day they'll be lucky like you to get informed and educated. And then there's so many that just will suffer. And it's really just unbelievable. How did you get to the point of even becoming educated on it? What was sort of the driving factor for you?
It's funny. I had a roommate at the time and we had a bet, but it was funny. He was very thin, right? And I was very overweight. And so we had a bet on whether, he could gain more weight than I could lose. Oh. And so I really wanted to win this bet with him. So I read all these diet books for the first time, like Whole30, et cetera. So that's when I like really went on like a diet for the first time. And when in trying to lose weight, I was shocked when my skin got better. I was like, wait a minute. I've had eczema and acne my whole life. Like, why is my skin better right now? Right. So then I realized like, oh my God, food doesn't just affect my weight. It affects my energy, my sleep, my skin, my mood. Yeah. And from that point, I was hooked and I wanted to learn everything I could. And I did. I read every book. I hired nutritionists. I hired naturopaths. I tested everything. I was like set on fully optimizing my health through food and became such an expert on it. And I remember when I was working in tech before I started methodology, people would come to me for help, right? And I would like write out programs for them. And they knew I was like the health conscious one in the office. Like, so if they heard high heels in the kitchen, because I was the only person who wore heels in tech, to be clear, I was like, oh, the stilettos and everyone else was in sneakers.
I love it.
In the kitchen and was like eating a cookie. They would like drop the cookie because they'd be like, oh my God, Julie's coming into the kitchen. I don't want her to catch me eating like junk food, right?
So funny.
So yeah, I was like a little bit of a Nazi then, but just because I really wanted, I'm just so passionate about helping people feel their best through food, just because the impact it had on me. I used to be overweight and cry in dressing rooms and say no to wakeboarding trips because I didn't want to wear a swimsuit in public. And all of these things. Yeah. Like not dating for years because I didn't have the courage to go on dates because I didn't feel attractive. Like I suffered for so long. So that's why like I love overall healthy eating, but the niche of weight loss has a special place in my heart just because it's amazing how much better I felt when I like lost the excess weight, frankly. It's not just the
Yeah.
visual thing. Like it's easier to run, it's easier to walk up the stairs, right?
Every
It's just I my snoring went away. Like which is like
if
important for
that's
my
not
you know,
motivation, what else
no,
could
like
be?
no, like it affects my partner, like to stop snoring. It's just like the craziest things get better when you're just at a healthier weight.
I love
Yeah.
you giving us all some hope. And I think it's a perfect way to close out this awesome conversation. What is one drop of wellness wisdom you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I kind of want to circle back to the thing that we talked about earlier and just kind of reframe it in that whatever your wellness goal is, give yourself 3 to 4 times longer to achieve it than you think you need. Because when you give yourself enough time, you won't bring desperate energy into it. Because when we're desperate, we make irrational choices and decisions where we do things that will get us to where we think we want to go in the short term, but we often end up hurting ourselves in the long run or choosing things that we can't sustain in the long run. So, whatever you're trying to do, give yourself more time so that you don't act desperate about it and really take your time instead to do things that are like thoughtful and wise, right? So no matter what you're trying to do, I know it's really hard to be patient. Trust me. Like I've been there. I've yo-yoed. It's really hard. We always kind of wait until 4 to 6 weeks before that vacation before we start eating healthy, right? But if you can just break that one habit, like right now at this time of the year when you're listening to this podcast when it just came out, honestly, now would be the time to start working on any health changes that are important to you so that you can feel amazing for spring, right? Not January, but if you start now, you're going to give yourself plenty of time, which gives yourself room to make mistakes and learn from them without feeling really bad about yourself, not do anything too extreme, like eating 800 calories a day or skipping 2 or 3 meals a day, right? Like you don't need to do anything extreme if you give yourself enough time. That's one of the things that I wish I had known in my 20s that I didn't really master until later in life. And that's the reason why now, if you go to my Instagram, you're like, okay, how did this person go from, overweight to like a body fat percentage in the mid-teens? It's been a multi-year journey to get to this point. Years, not weeks, right? So just give yourself more time and you will get there. So
Such
that's
a great
it.
message. No, thank you so much. I think we don't put as much attention to the mental, and there's such a huge mind gut association, which people hear and they know. But really, if you relax the mind and just nourish your body and give yourself those positive affirmations and give yourself that time and grace and just love yourself actually and give yourself, supporting messages, like be your own best cheerleader while you go through that, and giving that extra time, I think is so important. And you're right, we're so hard on ourselves. We all are. So just, be patient, give yourself time. And Julie's been so gracious to offer our listeners 10% off your first order with code The Well Drop. We'll have it in the show notes. Again, check it out. Nationwide shipping, delivering right to your doorstep. Give it a try now and set yourself up for spring. Julie, thank you so much for joining us on the Well Drop today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.